I'm here with D'Artagnan Bebel, who's the SVP and General Manager for Fox 26 TV and My 20 TV in Houston, Texas, and Jolie Long, who's Director of Sales for Cox Atlanta Radio. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about finding mentors to help you navigate your sales career. We'll also talk a little bit about what qualities make a good salesperson. And then, of course, we'll get into if you're interested in a career in broadcast media, a little bit about how they got their start in the industry. So why don't we start with you, Jolie? You started in sales in media not too long ago. So tell us a little bit about how you got your start in the industry.
Yeah, well, I got started actually in college. I went to the University of Southern Indiana. I graduated there in 2002. But while I was there my senior year, I knew I was getting my experience and creating my brand. So I went to work. I did an internship at a local heritage radio station as a reporter because my major was broadcast journalism at the time. And I also worked for the college radio station and the college television station for a live little magazine talk show that we did on air. So I had 3 jobs my senior year. But whenever I took my sales class for broadcast sales my senior year, that's when I was hooked. That's when I knew that I wanted to sell the industry that I was so passionate about and still am today. So I was able to get that experience while in college, and I moved to Indianapolis and worked for a great company there. At the time it was Susquehanna in Indianapolis, and I sold radio there for 4 years. After I did that, I knew that, and I was successful, and I liked whenever the new people would come in, and I would want to like put them under my arm and help them and let them shadow, and I'd go out on calls with them too and help them build their business. And I was like, I really want to get into leadership. I really want to be a sales manager. So I went back to Southern Indiana and started with a privately held company group there. At the time, it was South Central Media, and I was the general sales manager there for 7 years. And then was recruited by Cox Media Group in Atlanta. And I'll be coming up on my 7 years here. Started as general sales manager, and then I became the DOS February 2017. So I've been the director of sales since then. But I think the thing that's been great is because I've always worked for great leaders. I've always worked for a great company, and I've always had the support of my peers. So that's what's got me to where I am today.
That's been an exciting career, Jolie. And as you know, we're calling on you all the time when we're talking to people that are considering sales opportunities in media. And so thanks for sharing that story. D'Artagnan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a native New Yorker, proud to be so, still am, although I'm residing in Texas now. I actually kind of started early on in my life having an interest in broadcasting, but decided very early on, as early as high school, that, you know what, I wasn't interested in the journalism side, more so the business side. And as I began to explore that, I majored in broadcast management at Howard University, proud graduate of an HBCU, had many internships. Julie talked about, starting to build her brand. I take it the same approach where, it's never too early to start building that brand. Well before the school actually requires you to take an internship, I had 5 before the school required me to take an internship. Graduated from Howard University in broadcast management. Why? Because they were one of 3 schools that I had found in my search that actually offered the business side of the business. So that's why I ended up at Howard. I then went on to graduate school, have an MBA in marketing from Columbia University back in my hometown in New York. And then I went on to get my first sales job with CBS Radio in New York. Began to network, and I know we're talking about mentoring, and I've got a particular story that I'll talk about later on with regard to my first mentor, who actually was a key one in my career. And then I went on to LA with CBS, switching over to television. Eventually advanced to director of sales at CBS, to CBS O&O there. then was recruited by NBC to run an NBC station sales in Indianapolis. And quite frankly, without going through my whole resume, I've been all over the country, East Coast, West Coast, and now I'm in the Midwest, Mid-South kind of thing, however you want to define that. Been here at the Fox owned station in Houston as Senior Vice President, General Manager of a duopoly for over 20 years now.
Well, that's awesome. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us that story about your first mentor, and then I'll come to you, Julie, because you talked a little bit about being the mentor, but I'm sure you've had some. So, D'Artagnan, tell us a little bit about your first mentor, and then maybe some about what you look for in a mentee.
One of the things that CBS did while I was at the CBS O&O radio station in New York, and this was at the building infamously called Black Rock, was they had these occasional lunch and learns for the entire company. Anybody could come, and they'd have some high-end guy or gal come on in and kind of give a lecture about what they do, how they do it. And one particular one, he's now passed away. Some of us may remember his name, Tony Thermopoulos. Was running network at the time, and he gave a lunchtime talk, and I had to go. I went. And while we were there, he mentioned how this is a great opportunity for people to network with other people in the company, because I know that we're all busy and we don't typically have time to go up and down, the various and sundry floors of the building. But, as an example, somebody in the back happens to be the president of the station division sales group for CBS Television. And I went, oh. Now, I had always been networking, using that opportunity to network people at these lunch and learns. But when I heard that and I turned, and coincidentally, the man that he was pointing to, the president of the television station sales group, happened to be African-American. And so I was like, ooh, wow, even more motivated. So I made a beeline back there, exchanged cards as we typically do, and people do the same thing to me now. But the issue is, if I give out 1,000 cards at a speech that I'm giving, okay, if I get 10 people to follow up, that's a lot. The other issue is that when you're trying to exchange cards at a function of that nature, with a lot of people trying to press the flesh and get a picture or get a number or whatever, it's what are you going to do that's going to make yourself memorable to that person, even on the introduction. Okay, so I'm not going to sit there and pitch this guy at this luncheon at the conclusion of it about, hey, here's whatever. No, the issue of exchanging cards was key to me getting his contact information. And by the way, I'm old school, which you'll learn more about as well as I tell my story. We didn't have email back then. So the whole idea was I spent literally weeks, not every day necessarily, but calling his office, introducing myself to his assistant, who is a gatekeeper, who, as you progress in your sales career, you'll learn more about gatekeepers and how to navigate your way around gatekeepers, which is a key part of learning about sales. And eventually became intimate over the phone, at least with friends with her, because he refused to return my phone call for a long, long time. Finally, it came down to, I said, look, I had done my research on him as well and found out that he had an MBA from Wharton and I had an MBA from Columbia. So that was something that put us on somewhat of a similar plane. And so finally, one evening, because I used to work late, I called. Guess what? The gatekeeper had gone home for the day. And guess who happened to pick up his phone that single time? It was him. And I was literally almost shocked to the point where he picked up his phone, and I was like, "Look, we met at the and I'm running through real fast because I'm not wanting him to hang up on me." And finally, I said, "Look, I'm not asking you for anything right now." I said, "We have similar backgrounds in that I have an MBA from Columbia, you have an MBA from Wharton, which I know." And I said, "All I want to do is spend maybe 20 minutes with you on a weekend at home. I'll meet you at your house. I'll meet you at a coffee shop, wherever, and whatever it takes, just to hear you tell me your story for about 20 or 30 minutes. That's all I'm asking for." So finally, you know what he said? He said, "You know what? I love the way you've been handling me because I've been putting you off and putting you off and putting you off, but you have persisted." Another key point in becoming a good salesperson, persistence, right? And he goes, "You know what? 2 weeks from today, why don't you come up in the evening and we'll meet up in my office?" And that half an hour scheduled meeting turned into 2 hours. And then what was to be a relatively lifelong mentoring relationship, which in the end, I'll fast forward because I know we're limited on time. There was a point in time 2 years later where I said, "You know what? I'm ready to endeavor to make a move over to television." And the first thing that he said to me was, he goes, "There's a job in Philadelphia and there's a job in LA with the company." And he goes, "Let me just explain one thing to you. I don't get people jobs." And I totally understood. What he was saying was, I will open the door for you, but you have to go get it. And I ended up taking a job in LA, transferred cross country, and the rest is history.
Tanya, you made so many great points there about persistence, about follow up. You know, I have the same statement that I make a lot when I'm speaking to students about, you know, I get a ton of cards, I get a ton of, you know, outreach of, will you be my mentor? But then the follow through is just not always there. So Jolie, tell us a little bit about your mentoring experiences.
Yeah, you know, I think mentorship is something too that's a natural and organic relationship. And for me, finding someone at the time early on inside my organization was what I thought I should do to find a mentor. Someone that I admired, someone that shared the same values, someone that supported me, and someone that I looked up to that I wanted to be like, someone that I could keep in the back of my mind, like, what would that person do in certain situations? Because as you grow, you learn different things, you have to make tough decisions, and you fail and you were successful. So who is that person that could be, you know, there for me? Like my board of directors, somebody that's sitting at the table with me and who will be honest with me and will give me feedback, the tough feedback, the critical feedback, and the feedback too that maybe I don't see of myself, and that type of perspective. So early on, I found someone within my organization that would do that and would be that person for me. I think then whenever I went into a position where someone asked me to be their mentor, it was also very organic. It was actually a referral. Someone reached out to me and said, I think you would be great for this person, and here's why. And they were very specific, they were very detailed, they were putting a lot on the table too by connecting us and saying, you know, I've told her about you, I think that you would be a great fit, I think that you would be able to work with her in ways that I can't. So then, you know, I'm also helping my friend in that way. Again, it was very organic. It was a very real relationship. I have too been in positions where somebody has reached out and said, I would like for you to be my mentor. And then there was usually an ask after that, you know, can you help me do this? Can you do, and of course I'm happy to help you with something, but I think we need to be more clear about what the word mentor means, and that it is a relationship. It is something that is living and breathing. It doesn't start, it doesn't end. It's not a project. It's something that there's purpose behind. There's fulfillment for the mentor and the mentee. And again, that is what a relationship is.
So Jolie, you raised a really good point there, you know, about the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. Who is the onus on? I get asked that question a lot. Is it on the mentee to stay in touch with the mentor? Is it on the mentor to stay in touch with the mentee? And then how do you find the right, if you will, flow of information? I mean, D'Artagnan, you mentioned also that you built a lifelong mentorship, you know, relationship with your mentor. So how do you find that flow? I mean, there are instances where I have mentors personally that I call maybe once a month. There are instances that I may talk to another on the phone almost every other day. So how do you determine that flow in the relationship?
So I think it depends on the relationship and probably what's been established from the beginning about how the mentor and mentee are going to work together. And I think to be clear with what the intentions are of the mentee mentor, the mentorship relationship. There are times where the mentee reaches out to me, and there are times where I need a little something and I'm reaching out to the mentee. So I think that it does depend. I think having a clear idea and a clear path about where you want the relationship to go is always that compass. So whenever I'm thinking of something, and by the way, that mentee is always on my mind. Again, like that just happens. There's not something in my calendar where it says, oh, check in with this person at this time or this date. No, I've read an article because of a discussion I had, and I'm going to send it to her, or I want to hear something from him. So I think it really depends on what that relationship is. If it's more formal, if it's a more structured relationship, then maybe you've already defined, what the times are that you're going to be meeting and how often you should communicate with each other. But especially during times where they're challenging, or even the highs and people are successful, it's a living and breathing relationship where it goes back and forth very often, because I get just as much out of mentoring as someone as I hope that they get on the receiving end.
Yeah, let me jump in and add some thoughts to that also, because she used a beautiful word earlier, which was organic, and we're throwing around this word relationship quite a bit. And I will tell you, earlier somebody mentioned about they called up and said, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" Well, you know what? That's not really the way it works. And honestly, relationship and organic are two operative words that I think everybody on this call should kind of take heed to, and that is that it's like a marriage. I mean, you're courting each other, and to run up to somebody and say, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" No, I don't even know you yet, right? Date me, ask me out on a date, ask me for a drink, or whatever, in that kind of a way. And let's develop our relationship to see whether or not there's a good fit. The other thing that I throw in there is that there's a lot of different types of mentor-mentee relationships, or mentors that you may look for. Julie, hopefully I said it correctly, talked about she had one that was internal. My original one, who helped me a lot and has remained a lifelong friend, was internal. But you know what? Sometimes you want to find somebody who's not in your company. Because if you want to throw a radical idea out and get feedback from it, it may hurt you internally or it may help you. Okay, you can go either way. But you know what? To have a mentor where there's no cost, there's no capital cost to you, okay, it's something that you also need to think about. Who can I just throw out some crazy ass idea to with no penalty? You throw out a crazy ass idea to your mentor from within, that might, come back to haunt you. So again, what I'd suggest is that you have several people that you develop a relationship with organically within and outside the company. And depending upon what's on your mind, you may choose as to which one you're talking to and why specifically.
That's really good. I'm going to switch gears just a smidge here, because I do want to stick with the whole mentoring theme. I do think it's important for particularly entry-level individuals when they're starting their career to identify individuals that they can connect with. Asking for someone to mentor me, and maybe not especially your boss, if you will. But from both of you are managers and been in this industry for a while. When in our industry, which a lot of people aren't really aware of, the good majority of senior managers start in sales. They start their careers in sales. So when you are looking at, and you probably, neither of you hire entry-level sales candidates any longer, but you certainly know one when you see it. And so when you're looking at what makes a strong entry-level sales candidate, what are some of those qualities? And when you see those types of individuals, is it something that, does it strike something in you where you're like, you know what, I think I have a little bit of a connection with this person. I may particularly mentor that person. And I'm asking this from a student perspective, so that as they start these new careers in whatever industry, and hopefully they'll be be interested in radio and television broadcasting, what characteristics attract, if you will, a mentor, and as well make you a good salesperson?
Sure. So I would say for the salesperson piece, about what would attract someone to that type of talent, someone who is a great problem solver. That's something that I'm looking for. Someone who is positive, someone who is unique, and someone who is completely confident being themselves, someone who is diverse from maybe the team we already have in place, or it has diversity in thought, someone that can own that craft too, of being able to be creative and learn and help our clients with the best solution possible. So I think being a problem solver, a high learner, high positivity, somebody that has relationship skills too, interpersonal relationship skills, competition. I mean, we want people who will perform. So the top talent should also be competitive, and not that they always have to win, but that they hate losing. So those are kind of the things that we're looking for whenever we talk about the natural talents and skill sets. I loved what was said earlier too, that finding someone outside of your network is a great place to really grow and really stretch yourself whenever you're looking for a mentor and mentee, someone that you want to invest that time with. Because you're right, you do have someone, you've got people inside your organization, but outside is really where you stretch. Outside is really where you can grow and develop and learn in a different way. And just having someone else kind of have the lens on versus someone inside your organization. So I love that. That's 100% accurate, because we should all be thinking that way and thinking differently about how we can grow ourselves.
Yeah, I would agree with all of what Julie, hopefully I'm saying correctly, said. I love the question about, what am I looking for, or what are we looking for in potentially a good salesperson or a great salesperson. And I'll premise that remark by saying this, that a little bit of a funny story. When I was working in LA at CBS, I tried to recruit somebody who worked at a Carl's Jr. drive-in as a salesperson. Okay, so that's how out of the box thinking that I am. This was a burger joint. If you know LA, you know Carl's Jr. It's kind of famous. But the way this person always talked to you on the speaker, that's where it started, right? And then tried to upsell you, right? Seemed very bright, very articulate, very quick, very customer oriented. Those are some of the generic things. Because here's what I would tell you. Nobody comes out of the womb being born a great salesperson, okay? It takes what I call something internally, and Julie touched upon some of those things, because I'll tell you one of the key things I look for, and it's real simple, okay? I'm looking for somebody who presents well. And that's overall, the overall package in presenting well, who can speak well. But one of the key qualities I'm looking for is somebody who is an outstanding listener. Okay, the things like problem solving, yes, I'm looking for that too. The things like competitive nature, I've hired former high school, college athletes. Why? Because they know how to work with a team, as an example, right? That's a quality that they bring to the table, right? But if you give me somebody who's got fire in the belly, who's got outstanding listening skills and outstanding communication skills, I will make them into a great salesperson.
That was so great to hear. And I appreciate both of you really outlining all of the qualities that you look for in an individual. And I especially appreciate the Carl's Jr. story, because I have a few of those on my own, where you just run across someone that's completely different field, completely different industry, but something about, the way that they're handling the role that they're in tells you that, well, I may be a server at a restaurant, enjoying and loving my career, but you'd also make an outstanding, VP of customer service. And so I really, truly appreciate you outlining that, because you never know who's watching at any given point and what it might lead to. And so I figured that we could close with the two of you giving us a couple of high points about the benefits of working in media sales.
Well, I'll tell you, I love what I do. Some people kind of fall into a career. I'm here by my plan, and I'm one of the few, that are like that, and I'm blessed in that regard. So I think media is a great career. I think sales. I was not born a salesperson, okay? But when I realized the track that I wanted to take, which was, I will tell you, I've always wanted to be early on a general manager. And as I studied the career path, where do general managers come from? Okay, they tend to come from sales. And so as I realized that, I said, well, you know what? I want to be a GM, and I want to lower my barrier to entry, which is a marketing term, right? Then if I take the sales track, that hopefully will lead me to an eventual opportunity to become a general manager. So, but I love the business. It's becoming much more competitive, much more difficult. The margins are shrinking. There's a lot of different opportunities out there and a lot of different skill sets that we're teaching. I will tell you that sales today is not per se the same as it was, you know, when I was actually on the street 35, 40 years ago, but some of those qualities still persist in terms of what's needed to be successful. It's a whole lot more transactional today than it was ever before. There's a whole lot more computer programmatic, which is going to require a little bit of a different kind of a skill set. But in the end, you know, at some point, hopefully, in that sales process of today, you're still dealing with another human being. And maybe that media buyer on the other end of her computer who's only seeing 3 people a week in an environment that's current today, you're going to be one of those 3 people. And that's one of the secrets of the relationship part of it. But I love what I'm doing, and it's still a great business to be in. And anybody that wants to contact me about talking about sales or whatever, love to do it.
All right, thanks. Jolie?
Yeah, and I would add to that, you know, working in media sales, I really feel like waking up every morning that we are making a major contribution to society. I mean, we are building businesses, we are growing businesses, and they become successful. When that happens, they can employ more. Their families can take vacation. People are healthier, and that makes an impact on the community. So whenever our clients are successful, we're successful. And that's how it works. And we have to earn that business every morning. There are so many options that people have. Business owners make, big brands take too. I particularly love working with the business owners. So, you know, they have options. They get called on 25 times a day from people just like me and my team. And I love that they choose to work with us. And I want to earn that business every single day. I don't take it for granted, which means that we've got to be on the offense, and we've got to bring them great ideas, and we've got to be creative, and we've got to make sure that we are in line with their needs and that we're solving their problems. And again, that goes back to the overall contribution and success. And I think that's the beautiful part about this, because we get to be creative. We definitely have the business aspect, but there's also a bigger purpose and fulfillment whenever you can make the community and society much more successful.
Jolie, D'Artagnan, thank you so much for your time, your insight, and thank all of you for joining us on this session on identifying a mentor to help you build your sales career.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right.